I bet you can't hear me though. You can hear it? Sweet. All right. So, hi there. My name is Angie or WebChick, as I go on Drupal.org and Twitter and other places. Not Gmail though. I have no idea who WebChick at gmail.com is, but she probably gets all kinds of weird emails. So a little about me. I am, as Ben mentioned, I'm the Drupal 7 co-maintainer. I also have some commit access to Drupal 8 just to get bug fixes in, hopefully a lot faster. I'm a co-author of the Using Drupal book on O'Reilly, and we're currently working on upgrading that to Drupal 7, and that's a sad situation. But anyway, you know, it'll be great when it's done. I'm a Drupal Association board member. I'm basically obsessed with Drupal. I am a geek. I love Drupal. I love the community. I love just the people involved, everything about it. And so I tend to spend every last moment of my free time on Drupal. And so, you know, that's who I am. And my day job is actually working with Acquia nowadays. I work directly with Dries, basically working on big, important stuff for Drupal. So that means like getting Drupal 7 stable. It means kicking off Drupal 8 initiatives. It means doing some work on Drupal.org to make it less of a pain in the butt to work with, and all that kind of stuff. And I am obligated to tell you that we are hiring. So if it sounds like fun to you working on stuff like that, you know, come find me and talk after. We also have some marketing materials over at the GBS Growing Venture Solutions table, and thanks guys for helping us. Okay, so enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit is some facts and statistics about the Drupal community. There's some people here who are new and maybe don't know all this stuff. We'll also talk about how to get involved and also why to get involved. You know, it's not just for funnies and karma and all that stuff. There's some practical reasons why you might want to get involved. We'll also talk about how to be effective in your contributions, because it's not just enough to like just dive in there and start doing stuff. You can do that, but you might find yourself kind of frustrated doing that. So we'll talk about sort of strategies on engaging with the community and making sure that your contributions are sort of well placed. And then we'll also talk a little bit about where we're going. You know, where's the Drupal project headed? What are the major things that are going on? And I'm trying to leave plenty of time for questions if people have them and all that kind of stuff. So, sound good? Yeah. So this is a Drupal community. You know, we're a big bunch of eclectic people. There's people in suits. There's people with mohawks. There's, you know, hippies. There's librarians. There's all kinds of people. It's this huge sort of infusion of this, like, just diverse community of really passionate people. Dries Weitard is the head guy, the big kahuna for the Drupal project. And he said this before, that it's really the Drupal community and not the software that actually makes the Drupal project the amazing thing that it is. So fostering the community is actually more important than, you know, making sure we have the best code base and we have the biggest, you know, the most bugs fixed and all that kind of stuff. And I totally agree with that. Because at the end of the day, Drupal's just a pile of code, the software itself, and you could rewrite Drupal in Python. Many people have tried. You know, and hooks, you'll hear people talking about hooks and how extensible they are and how great they are. And honestly, it's like a function naming convention, right? You could do that in any other piece of software. But what you don't have in any other piece of software is this huge community of innovative, awesome people that are just constantly seeing how they can push it to the next level and make it do more and more and more all the time. Our community tends to double in size at each release. That's true, again, of Drupal 7. These are a little bit older graphs, which means like when I started, I'm user ID number like 24,000 something, and now we're up to user ID 1 million something. I mean, it's pretty crazy, the amount of growth the community has seen. There's also over 200 local user groups, including the one here in Denver. How many people here have been to the Denver user group? Almost everybody, awesome. How about other, can anyone shout out, are there other, like, does Durango have their own, like, sorry? Western Colorado, Boulder, Colorado Springs. Is there going to be a fight later? Like, also, I'm curious, like, who traveled the farthest? So how many people here are not from Denver, or from Colorado? Okay. How many people are not from Denver? Okay, how many people here are not from Colorado at all? How many people here are not from the Western United States? How many people here are not from the United States at all? Oh, wow. Nice. Now, but we have some people who travel here from like Paris and stuff, right? Wow. Yeah. So, you know, that's the kind of, that's how awesome Denver is, you know. we've got this great community of people who are really passionate, and the Drupal community has this ethos really of like, you know, there are other open source communities where it's sort of like, you know, how big of a person can you be and how much can you sort of knock the other person down. In Drupal, my experience anyway has been it's all about like, dude, I know this totally awesome thing, and if like I talk to you about this awesome thing, then you'll know it too, and then we'll both know this awesome thing, and wouldn't that be great? And you know, and it's wonderful. It's like this, you know, community of mentorship and all this kind of thing. But it is a little scary to evolve, so let's talk a little bit about that later on. So our community is thousands of individuals. They're each scratching their own itches, so I like to show this picture of cats because, you know, Drupal might seem like this project that's like moving along this path, but what it actually is it's made up of tons of individual contributions from individual people. You know, somebody decides that the way we do database queries just bothers them so much that they're going to sit down and write a new database layer for Drupal 7. And they call in a few of their friends to help review it, and that's how that stuff happens. Someone else might decide, you know, the way core does this admin interface is totally dumb, so I'm going to make, you know, my own contributed module that does it better and see if people like it. And that's how change happens, is just individuals who get an itch, you know, we call it, and says, I see a problem, I want to fix it, I'm going to dive in and do it. We also call Drupal community a do-ocracy, as opposed to a meritocracy. A meritocracy means that you sort of like, the more that you know, the sort of higher up in the chain you go. There is definitely an element of that, but a lot of it is just like, that guy's doing stuff, so he must know something, you know, like kind of thing. And so the more that you do in the community, the more, you know, the louder voice you get, and things like that. Mind you, we don't know what we're doing, you know, in our democracy, but we really do have a lot of fun. So how many people here have been to a DrupalCon before, like to Chicago or? Sweet, lots of people. Aren't they like family reunions? Like, you know, like you see, like, okay, you're, oh man, how are you doing? You're doing flaming shots. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later. But it's a lot of fun, though. I mean, you get to network with other collaborators in the issue queue, businesses get to network with their partners and their customers. It's really, really, really a lot of fun. It's a unique conference atmosphere. I've never seen anything like it. So I'm up here and I'm telling you all this stuff about how the community is much more fuzzy teddy bears and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, I got yelled at by Earl Miles in the issue queue, so I know you're lying. And there's also an element of like, you know, we talk about the community doubling in size each release. We're talking about, you know, Ben is saying there's, you know, half a million people contributing to Drupal.org. That's kind of intimidating when you're starting out, right? You know, so you're kind of like, well, no, I'm scared, you know, like. You know, it's like, yeah, you say we're all warm and fuzzy, but you're kind of intimidating. I don't know about that. So let me say, I get this. I completely get this. So let me talk to you a little bit about my background. So what's my story? Why am I standing up here in front of you today? So my background is that I am a huge geek. Really, Angie? You would have no idea that you're a huge geek by the way you hunched over me. Kind of amazing. So yeah, I'm a nerd. My first computer was a VIC-20, which my aunt bought for me against my parents' wishes when I was like 3, and thanks, that was awesome. So I taught myself how to program in the back of 321 Contact magazines that had those little basic, you know, programs. Did anybody ever read those? Yeah, right? It was like 7,000 lines of code, and then there'd be like a box that went, boop. And you're like, yeah, I can do that, that's awesome. I first installed Linux in 1995. This was when Debian Linux fit on 7 floppy disks, okay? I don't even think you can get Debian on 7, like, dual-layer DVDs anymore. I mean, it's just insanely huge. So this is my background. I've become fiercely passionate about free software and open source ever since I first heard the term. I thought that was awesome. You know, here are all these like developing countries, nonprofits, government organizations, libraries, schools, all these organizations that really help the world, or at least try to help the world, could use this software that's just as good or better than its commercial equivalent for free. And they can tinker with it, they can make it better. I thought that was amazing, and so, you know, I became sort of an advocate of open source. So I was one of those, I was like that guy, you know, slash girl, who's like always like, you need to use Firefox instead of Internet Explorer, and, you know, mouthing off to my teacher in school, being like, hey, if you're going to teach us, you know, ASP.NET and Oracle, then you need to teach us PHP and MySQL too. Very obnoxious. I still am, so, yeah. So this is me, right? My background, I'm a geek, I'm an open source advocate and all this stuff. But, despite having all of that background, my first actual contribution to open source wasn't until 2005, which was a decade after my obsession with open source. talking to my friends about open source and stuff like that. But yet, I sort of had this, this perception that, well, those people are all really smart and they know what they're doing, and I just kind of, I don't really know. So, I'm going to cheer those guys on from the sidelines, but what can I do? And if it wasn't for Google Summer Code, which is this awesome program where they basically pay you over the summer to work on an open source project, that was what sort of broke a hole in the wall for me. So I was like, well, they must know that I don't know everything yet, because they're looking for students, right? So I guess maybe that's my end. And so that's how I got involved in Drupal in the first place. Is, I saw this program that was for students, and I thought, okay, well, I'm at least that good, at least a student, I can probably do that. And now that I'm on this side of the you must be this smart to contribute well, these people don't know what the fuck they're doing half the time. I see this code and I'm like, are you serious? I have to, as a Drupal 7 core maintainer, I have to I have to review patches and stuff like that of all the major contributors. So all the Drupal rock stars that you've heard of have to sort of get their stuff by me in order to get in the core, And they're rock stars, and they're awesome, and they're really smart people, but they still do dumb stuff, and we all do. And it's not about who can be the smartest and who can do the best code contributions. It's really about collaborating together and coming up with the best solution together. So we'll talk about that. But basically, my goal with this talk is I want to make sure that that story is not anyone else's story ever again. Okay? So if you really like Drupal and you think that you can make a difference, I want you to feel coming out of here like you actually can. And it's not scary, and it's not intimidating, so we'll show you how. All right, so let's talk about some Mythbusters to lead off with. What is a contributor? Okay, so most people, when they think of contributors, think of people like me, hunched over a laptop and hairy and just sun, But no, a contributor is not that at all. Here, I'll break it down for you. This is exactly what a contributor is. They see something and they say, that's dumb. Okay? They say, I want to see that fixed. Sorry, that doesn't show up very well here. And then they also say, I can do something about it. Okay? If you have those three traits, you are one of the people that power open source. And a lot of people see that bottom one and they say, oh, I can do something about it. I think that means code. That doesn't mean code. It means all kinds of different things. But we'll talk about that later. But that's it. That's all you need to make a difference in open source. Because if you just see that something's dumb and you can do something about it, but you don't actually care if it's fixed or not, you're not actually contributing to open source in that perspective. Similarly, if you think something's dumb and you want to see it fixed, but you're powerless to do something about it, you also can't really enact change. But if you have all three of those traits, you can help. This was a big perception I struggled with. I thought you must be this smart to contribute to open source. Dries is a PhD, and Linus Torvalds is all wow, all this kind of stuff. But no, really, open source contributors and open source projects in general are all about wisdom of the crowd. It's all about taking a whole bunch of people, contributing the little bit of information that they know, and building it up to be this awesome thing. So this is how improvements are not made. Okay, I'll show you an example. So you have Gina the genius here, okay? And she's a genius, so her head is the size of a watermelon, right? She's a genius. And she's just sitting there, reading some light background reading on nuclear physics or whatever she does in her spare time. And she gets this idea for this wonderful thing that would really help people. And she whips out Emacs, probably, and shows this thing, and it sparkles and shines, and it's this, brilliant code, and all of her peers go, wow, that's amazing, and that is your best work yet. How many people think that's how contribution happens in an open source project? Good, because that is totally not what happens. This is what actually happens, okay? You have Edwina, the end user, over here. Okay? And she's really, really angry because she just hit some kind of a bug, okay? And so she goes to the Drupal.org issue queue, and she files a bug report. And that might be the last thing that she ever does. She might get so ticked off, she might stomp off and walk away. That's fine, because as long as she made a bug report that actually made sense to other people, that is a huge contribution to an open source project right there. If you do anything more than it's broke, please fix it, or maybe a little more brutally than that, that doesn't actually help anyone. But if you say something like, hey, I'm running this version of Apache, and when I click this button on this URL, I get this error, and I tried this and that didn't fix it, blah, 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 blah. That's perfect, because that's something someone can take and do something about. So even just making a bug report that makes sense is an important contribution. So Edwina, the end user, files a bug report, stomps off, never heard back from her again. And then eventually Paul, the programmer, comes along, and she also hit the same bug, and and then goes and searches the issue queue and goes, oh, hey, look, here's a bug report that describes what I'm running into. So I'm going to try and fix it. So Paula's a programmer, so she can kind of like, code up a patch, and so she posts it and marks the issue needs review. So that's a signal to other people that, oh, somebody has actually tried this, and has some kind of a solution. So let's see if we see what it's like. So Tatiana, the tester, comes along. She's got big Coke bottle glasses, inspecting bugs. She looks at Paula's code. And she goes, dude, I don't need to know. But then goes, okay, well, I'll post some feedback so that you know. And so she'll start, listing stuff like, you don't really need to query each field individually in a database query. How about if you just did one query that got everything you that one? Just whatever feedback is. She'll try and help out Paula with some things, and she'll mark the issue needs work. So Paula sees that and says, oh, great, thanks for your feedback. Let me post a second condition. This is needs review again, and it goes back and forth like this a few times. And then eventually, Wendy, the poor soul stuck on Windows XP, she comes along. And you know what she said? You know what she says. She says it breaks in ID6. The only reason she's using XP is because she's a novelist and she needs a really old version of Microsoft Word. So she employs her English skills and says, also, mind your spelling. You will not believe how much of an asset I have access to a copy of ID6 is in an open source project. It's insane how valuable that is because most of us do not. So Paula goes, okay, one more time, let's try this. Tatiana has, been off doing other Coke bottle analysis for a while. She comes back, she goes, wow, that patch is much better. I'm gonna go ahead and mark that reviewed and tested by the community. And then someone like me or whoever the maintainer of the modules goes in and says, oh, great, here's all the patches that have been reviewed, so let me give them one final check and, hey, get them in. So the bottom line here is that, and that's actually not always how it happens, there's sometimes tears and pain a little bit, but this is the general overview of what it means. It's not one person coming up with a brilliant solution and everybody saying good. It's really just all these people contributing what they know. Paula knows how to code, Tatiana knows how to apply coding standards and all that kind of stuff that she knows how to do, and Wendy has ID6, which is amazing. And we all work together to come up with this fix. That's great. The other myth is, what qualifies as contribution? It's code, right? It's always got to be code. No. These are all things that qualify as contributions, and the list goes on and on. It's donations, advocacy, documentation, marketing. If you have access to people who don't use Drupal and you can do, usability testing with them. Issue queue farming, if you sit down in the views queue and you say, just monitor it for duplicate issues and you mark them as duplicate, that's a huge help to the maintainer. All this kind of stuff you can do. Oh, and coding too, okay? This is another huge myth, is that perfection, it's an open source project. There's all these really smart people looking at code. So for the love of God, don't put anything out there until it's perfect, right? Okay, don't do that. That's actually one of the worst things that you can do because you get much fewer touch points with the community. So I don't know who you are because you've only posted 4 issues and they've all been brilliant and perfect and stuff like that, but you haven't engaged the community in this review process and stuff like that. So your stuff might actually sit there while some lesser people actually work it out in public in the issue queue, and I end up knowing who they are and I don't know who you are. So engage with the community. There's 500,000 people, So the bottom line is fail early, fail often, and fail in public. Because that's how we get to know each other. This is another myth I hear a lot. They made Drupal confusing. They don't care about end users. Right? Right? Damn them! But the bottom line is there is no they. There is only us, okay? Because if you have a Drupal.org account, which I'm pretty sure you have to in order to register with Conference, maybe not, but you definitely have to have one to go to DrupalCon, so. But if you have a Drupal.org account, you can help with this stuff, You can post a comment that says, hey, I tried to use this in my environment and it totally busted everything. Here's the steps for you to use it. You can make the tiniest little contribution that helps move that ball forward for everybody else. And frankly, we need more of us to participate, okay? The stats are a little dated, but the end result is the same. So what this chart shows is that we have something like 99.63% of our users download the software and then we never hear from them again, ever. Which, I think I've filed one bug support for Firefox, and I've used the software ever since its inception. It's just one of those things they do. If they view Drupal as a tool to get their job done, they're probably not really going to get involved. 0.32% care enough to at least register a Drupal.org account, even if it's to spam us about shoes. But at least they care. The people who actually did something with their account, so they filed a bug report, they edited documentation, they contributed code, whatever they did, that's 0.05% of all the people who use Drupal who are actually making it do anything, right? And that's horrifying, right? I mean, because that 0.05%, they get burned out sometimes. And all that work is on them, and then when they get one of the 99.63 lipping off to them because, Drupal doesn't do such and such a thing, their natural reaction is like, well, what have you done? Which can sound really dismissive and annoying if you're not on the inside here. But the point is that, the people who are driving this thing forward need help. And they need all of us to sort of take a little bit of the burden as well. So let's talk a little bit about easy ways that you can get started with this. Show of hands, how many people have installed Drupal before? Okay, I think that's everyone, just about. Great. So there is 53,952 people who can't figure out how to install Drupal. Okay. So go help them. And they might be stuck on any number of things. They might not understand what the heck a tar.gz file is. They might not, they might have DreamHost, which has some weird thing going on, and you can use DreamHost, and you can share battle stories about that and have a good cry, whatever. But the point is, there's all these people who can't even get past level 1 because they can't even get Drupal installed. Okay? So help those people, reach out to them. It really feels good to help somebody like that because you're like, I know stuff. Look at this. Because if you think about all the things you need to know to install Drupal, you need to know what a web host is. You need to know what FTP or SFTP or SSH or whatever it is. You need to know what a database is. You need to know how to create one. All these things that you kind of take for granted when you're a web developer and you've been doing it for a while, that's all stuff that people had to learn at some point down the line, and you can help them. How many people here know how to use views or CCK or Drush or one of those things? Okay, again, a lot of people. Great. So make progress on one issue per day. Pick a module that your business or your whatever depends on, and go into that queue and just make progress. Don't try and fix an issue a day. That's a little too much. We talked about that process, and it's iterative. It takes place over a number of days or weeks. But make progress. Mark one issue as duplicated if it's a duplicate. If a support request comes in and you know how to do it, answer it. Because every time one of us does that, then Earl Miles can work on coding views, okay? And he can work on making that better. So it helps spread the load around, and I will tell you, if you go to a maintainer's queue and they're really overworked, especially views, any of the big ones like that, and they see you in there a couple times a day, just doing some basic triage and stuff like that, you have just made a friend for life. You know what I mean? I mean, they really appreciate that stuff because it takes them away from the stuff that they're good at and only they can do, which is actually making coding. So. How many of you had to learn something new to build your last site? And maybe found the documentation lacking? You could also perhaps use the adjective non-existent. So document it as you go, right? Because you have to figure it out anyway, right? Your client is screaming at you. You need to figure out how to take an argument into a view, pass it into a panel pane, and then wrap it into context and throw it into a rule or whatever crazy crap you're doing over there. But you have to figure that out. So document it, shove it in the handbook somewhere, which you can do from either clicking edit on any page or clicking add child page. This is helpful for two reasons. One, nothing really cements knowledge in your head more than trying to explain it to another person, so that's really helpful. The second one is that you really save the next person who has to tackle that problem from a whole lot of grief. And the big thing about number two is you might be that person 6 months from now who's like, crap, I totally had to do that for that other client, and I don't remember what I did. Oh wait, I can just Google my Drupal.org handbook page and I can find it. So this is really helpful. I was so grateful that my past self documented how to do hook views data, because I could not figure that out, and it took me an hour or something, and I made this little example in the API documentation and found the patch. And then eventually went in, and I was like, cool, and then 6 months later, it's been a while since I've done another Fuse data, and it's like, oh man, I don't even remember how to, oh look, there's my documentation I wrote back when I was smart. Great, you know. So, you know, I'm standing up here and I'm telling you about safe, and you're like, you know, I don't have the time to do that. You know, I've got clients, I have a family, once in a while I like to see them sometimes, you know. I enjoy doing things other than sit on the computer for all of my life and that kind of thing, you know. And I get this, the 0.05% of people, they also have families. I know, it's kind of shocking. Like, they do, you know. They might even have kids. They might even have, you know, like moms and dads that are sick and they need to take care of. So, make the time. All of us need to make the time so that none of us have to sit there and carry the burden for the rest of us on this project. Why? It's not just for the warm fuzzies, even though, you know, that's very cute.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay. Because the secret to Drupal success, be one of that 0.05% of people. If you are one of that 0.05% of people, then all kinds of doors open up for you. For example, you can probably get hired by just about any Drupal shop. You can be out there and visible in whatever space that you're into. If you really like SEO or whatever, and you're helping a lot of forum questions about SEO, guess who's going to find those forum questions about SEO? People who need someone to do SEO on their Drupal site, and they're going to contact you because they need help. This is also a great way to have your voice being a little bit more in the community. You know, it's a duocracy. The people who are doing stuff tend to carry a little bit more weight because they're helping shoulder the burden for everybody else. All that kind of stuff. It gives other people more incentive to help you. And this isn't, a lot of people, like when I say this, people think that's like an elitism thing, like I'm not going to help you unless you're doing stuff too. It's not about that, it's a basic time management problem, right? Because the people who are really active in the Drupal community are really, really busy. And so when I'm in IRC and I have 5 minutes between phone calls, and I'm like, okay, I just really want to like help someone in IRC that would make me feel better after that horrible sales call I was just on or whatever. And then I see 8 questions there, and I can answer 3 of them, but one of them is by someone that I know from the core queue. I'm going to answer their question, just because I've got a very limited scope of time and I want to use it to help people that I know have contributed to the project. So that's a big reason to help out more. The other reason is that it helps you learn faster, which is going to save you time and money. You know, instead of banging your face against the table working through a bug on your own, post it to the issue queue. You know, my favorite example of this is I was working with CCK, and I had a ridiculous problem where it was like I was creating my content type, I was clicking the export button, I was re-importing into the same site and it was breaking, and I was like, are you kidding me? It's going to take me hours to debug that. Oh my god. So I posted an issue, and then went and had a sandwich, because you have to have a sandwich before you start debugging CCK. A snip shot of Jack Daniels is probably good. So I had a sandwich, and I come back, and I like sit down to work, I reload the issue, and here Wideshed, the CCK maintainer, had seen my bug, had taken the exports that I had uploaded and said, oh, that's perfect, I totally found the issue, I fixed it, there's a new release out, have fun. And I'm like, are you serious? So all I had to do was download the new version of CCK and my problem was solved. That's awesome! So yeah, I could have also spent 2 days debugging that myself, but just by reaching out to the community and adding transparency to what you're working on, it can really, really save you time. It also gets more business and it attracts better people. You know, when someone like me is out looking for a job, what they're looking for is a company that has a track record for contributing to Drupal. You know, if you don't have a track record for contributing to Drupal, you're not going to attract the kind of talent that really seeks to see this stuff happen. And honestly, like, again, if you're out there active in your space, you're going to attract new customers anyway. Before I worked for Space and Leveldoff and Acquia, I was a freelancer, sort of accidentally. I hadn't intended, but I figured after summer code was over, I was going to go do .NET accounting applications or some boring thing like that. So I like help people in the support forums because I just like helping people. And people were just contacting me like one after another, like, hey, I have like $1,000. Can you do my theme for me or whatever? And it was just like, whoa! And I said yes to everybody, and they got totally burnt out. I don't recommend that, but the point is, if you're out there and you're active, that's like the best business card you can do. If you're out there being helpful for people, people are going to want to hire you. So, you know, helps you keep your finger on the pulse of Drupal. Drupal moves around a lot. But if you're talking every day with the people who actually make it move, and you're one of those people, then you can actually know about things before they know about it. It also gives you a stronger voice in the project. Again, someone like Earl Miles can probably, you know, go head to head with just about anyone because he built the freaking views module, you know. But you don't have to build a freaking views module. If you're just somebody who's really helpful in the support forums, or you're someone who shows a track record in your user profile contributing and helping out others, people are going to take that into consideration and they're going to be like, all right, that's awesome. You know, you're one of the people helping us out. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about being effective at contributing, because it's not enough to just do stuff. You also want to kind of do it in a way that's helpful and not frustrating. So we have this page here on Drupal.org called Getting Involved. And that's a nice page. It kind of gives an overview of all the major ways that you can kind of contribute to the community, and it's great. One thing it doesn't do, though, is kind of connect you one-to-one with somebody who actually cares about your area. So what I would actually recommend is the community initiative section of Drupal.org. These are where little teams, like say the HTML5 team in Drupal 8, or you know, the people working on Drupal.org, or whatever, have identified these 8 issues or whatever it is are really important to fix. So if you're interested in the Ajax system, for example, you can go and reach out and find out who are the people involved in that initiative and how can I reach them and where do they think my time would be best spent. And then you're automatically working on something really important and also something that you probably want to have fixed too. So that's pretty cool. You should also seek out the doers. For Drupal core, there's a file called maintainers.txt, which lays out who the component maintainers are for just about everything in the system. So again, if you're going to work on, say, you really, 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 really hate the way that Drupal's markup looks out of the box, and you want to friggin' fix that problem because it just bugs the crap out of you, there's information in there about who cares about that and who to talk to about that. And they would love to hear from you and get your help. For contributed modules, this will be the people in the sort of maintainers block. Those are the people to reach out to. In documentation, there's a couple of coordinators there. There's Jennifer Hodgson, there's Ariane Kachatorians, and there's a bunch of other people. But the bottom line is find the human who cares about the area that you're interested in, and reach out to them and say, I'd like to help. You know, here are some of my ideas. What do you think about that? And you guys can have a discussion about it. And when no one's already doing something in that area, step up. You know, don't wait to be given permission to contribute, because no one is going to give you permission. If it really bothers you that core is inconsistent about whether it has a period or not at the end of a form label, and you're like, I'm going to be period guy. That's my thing. I'm going to fix that. Just go and be period guy. That's great. You know, make that your cause, and you know, go into the issue queue and just go nuts and do all that kind of stuff. And that's wonderful. You know, that's what helps move Drupal forward. You're one of those individuals with an itch, and you can help move everything on. Get on IRC. IRC is this old, crufty, deprecated thing that's been around since like the 60s or 70s or something. And it's what open source people use to communicate. So, IRC, there's primarily 3 channels that are good to know about. Pound Drupal is sort of like a general chit-chat channel. You know, you can ask support questions in there, but you tend not to try and dominate the entire discussion. Drupal Contribute is where all the people who up at 0.05%, they tend to hang out in here and sort of discuss the big things that they're working on and all that kind of stuff. And then Pound Drupal support, if you're sort of starting out in Drupal and you need a little bit of hand-holding from a patient person who's not going to bite your head off, maybe, that's a good place to go. But again, I emphasize that go on IRC because this is where you get to see the human side of people. The issue here tends to kind of be all business, you know? So there's, you know, reviews coming on, it's not a lot of emotion, but on IRC, that's where you find out that Dave Reed has a cat who's really cute. And, you know, someone else has a Transformers collection they're really passionate about it. And we all, like, you know, joke about the epitaphs we put on the Oregon Trail, you know, gravestones as we were moving, and all that kind of stuff. Like, we're nerds, right? And you can come and hang out and stuff like that. We talk about serious stuff too, but, you know. But it's a great way to, like, meet the people behind the thing, as well as joke, you know, local user groups like this. Also remember that we're all human, okay? And sometimes we have bad days, and sometimes we have good days, and sometimes you might, you know, reach out to somebody and they've just got an email, you know, somebody yelling at them in their queue and they read your thing in the wrong light and they might go off on you. That happens sometimes. But on the whole, people's hearts are in a really good place. And so if someone does lip off to you, try and take it in stride and sort of rephrase your thing in such a way that they won't be so offended. But if you do turn into an asshat, which does happen, just remember, an asshat is someone who actually really, really loves Drupal, but is really frustrated because they don't know what to do with that passion, okay? So try and help them. You know, if they're in the forums just raising a tirade about something, you know, direct them say, oh, well, it sounds like the problem that you're having is related to this issue over here. So maybe if you go over there and test that patch and here are the instructions for how to do that, then you might be able to see that fixed. Try and guide them a little bit, because someone who is that angry is probably one of the most fiercest advocates for Drupal getting better if you can point them in the right direction. So, something to bear in mind. And then finally, I'm supposed to talk about where we're going, which that pretty much sums it up right there. So basically, where we're headed, Drupal 8 development kicked off at DrupalCamp Chicago, or DrupalCon Chicago, sorry, back in March. And so Dries Weisbert's appointed a few initiative owners. So we're basically, it's not like a roadmap per se, but there's certain high priority initiatives that he's identified. Among them are HTML5, getting configuration management, so that whole business with moving dev to stage to live and all that kind of nonsense, trying to get that in core so it's much easier for everybody. Web services, having native web services so Drupal can output things as XML or JSON or whatever in addition to HTML, and all of that kind of stuff. That's actively going on right now. There's a group called Drupal Initiatives. If you want to follow that and kind of learn what's going on, that's a big one to follow. Additionally, there's a bunch of work going on Drupal.org. There's a lot of fire around right now around making the collaboration process a lot more smooth for people, because our tools are a little bit janky in places, like the fact that you have to literally say subscribe and a comment in order to subscribe to an issue. So, a bunch of us are trying to see what sort of improvements can we make to Drupal.org to make it feel a lot friendlier and easier to use. And that kind of thing. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of other stuff, but mainly what the community is working on is Drupal 8, Drupal.org initiatives. A lot of people are working on upgrading their modules and themes to Drupal 7. If you learn how to do that, you're set for the next year and a bit, because you can start your own I port stuff to Drupal 7 shop, and you will just get endless amounts of work. And, so that's a good place to go. And all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you tell me where Drupal's going, because it's going to be all of you who help shape it. So, yeah, and that's what I have to say about that. So thanks very much. So, I think I talked too much, and we don't have much time for questions, or what do we have?
Yeah, we can pretty much right on schedule.
Okay. I'll take 2 questions, but nobody leave, because they're locking the door. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to take a big group photo since everybody's sitting here in one place, and you don't even have to move. It's very easy. So, so stick around. But let's go ahead and take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Yes?
Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Vancouver. Well, it's a long story. I'm originally from Minnesota. And then I lived in Nova Scotia for a while, and then I lived in Montreal. But now I live in
I thought it would be a quick answer.
Yeah, sorry. Which is awesome. Not as awesome as Denver, but it's pretty cool. Yes?
I just mentioned Drupal 6 migration 6.7 would be a big opportunity for freelancers or maybe Drupal.
Yeah.
Do you see other trends on that level that might be opportunities to market Drupal services?
Mobile stuff is getting pretty big, so if you know how to make Drupal sites work with mobile stuff, there's a couple of contrib modules that help with it, but it's still a bit janky. And if you're interested in mobile, that's another Drupal 8 initiative we're planning to kick off at some point down the line here. We want to get sort of the 5 we have going a little bit before we go crazy. But yeah, mobile is definitely huge. Porting stuff from 6 to 7 and site migrations is huge. Also, if people know stuff about some of Drupal's competitors, say, especially things in the enterprise, but even things like creating easy tools to get people out of whatever stupid thing they're using and into the awesome thing. That kind of stuff is always really big too. So, yeah. Yeah.
If this is too long a question, you don't have to answer, but
Oh, I'll probably answer it randomly.
I was recently in a position to hire some vendors to design a couple of websites in Toronto, actually.
Okay.
And one of them was said, I never will do Drupal again. I only now do WordPress. And another said, Drupal is so in the past. I'm doing Joomla.
Really?
And I don't know enough to respond to that, but what do you say? What do you say when you say why Drupal instead of some of the other open source?
Sure. Okay. That is a good question. WordPress, I don't know Joomla as well. But WordPress, I do know, is great because it's a blogging platform, which means that you install it, and within 2 seconds, you've got a blog up and running, and you can do stuff with it. It's also done a lot of really nice polish in the UI, specifically around that use case, which makes it very user-friendly out of the box. Drupal, on the other hand, is, there you go, here's a big box of Legos. And you can make a canoe, or you can make a castle, or you can make whatever you want, but you have to assemble it out of these little bricks that you make. And so it's a kind of a different mentality that people walk into it with. So it's a challenge for Drupal because when you first install it, you've heard about Drupal from someone like me who's like, oh, it's awesome, and then you install it and you're like, what now? This thing's lame. It doesn't even have a WYSIWYG editor. I don't even remember HTML. I was like so 1994 or whatever. And so, Drupal struggles a lot with that because there's we call it the learning cliff. Like, oh, okay, install Drupal again. And then you kind of sit there for a while and you're very frustrated, but once you get up over here, then it's like, wow, I can do anything. So where Drupal really excels is that it has a lot of miniature components that can be reused in a number of different ways. For example, if you want a photo gallery, in WordPress, and I think in Joomla too, you go and search and you say, give me a photo gallery, and you say, here are your 13 options of photo gallery. Download the one that you want. And you play around and find it. Drupal has some of that, but for the most part, Drupal aims towards, oh, you want a photo gallery? Okay, so that'll be a content site with an image field, so you can upload pictures. Then you're going to output it in a view, so you can do like a grid of thumbnails, and then you're going to probably use custom pages module to do the thumbnails. So it's more work to get your photo gallery in Drupal, but on the other hand, you can make that photo gallery look exactly like you want and work exactly like you want. You don't have to pick between a number of pre-baked options that may or may not be exactly what you want. The other advantage is that that image field upload thing is exactly the same interface that you're going to end up using on your album covers, on your pictures to upload, but it's like the same tools then apply for all of the content and management on your site, as opposed to having this interface when you're dealing with pictures, and then this other interface when you're putting events on the calendar, and then this other interface for this. So it's really strongly unified sort of content management structure. I don't know, for Joomla, I'm not really sure. Joomla, I know, has an object-oriented backend, and a lot of people prefer that over Drupal's sort of, how do we say, creative approach to APIs and stuff like that. So I know that's really strong. A lot of people criticize Joomla because you have to pay for a lot of things, to get basic functionality, and we don't like that. With Drupal, everything is GPL, everything is freely downloadable off of Drupal.org, and that's a big reason people use it as well. So I would say, a lot of people do start with WordPress, and they can get pretty far. The other strength that WordPress has is that you edit your HTML right in the browser, and it looks exactly like what you want. With Drupal, it's sort of like a Play-Doh press. And so you sort of get the HTML, that the module off the top might be cool, and that's probably not what you want. So it frustrates a lot of front-end developers that way. But again, the power in Drupal is that once you get over that learning curve, you literally can do anything. I mean, including Drupal.org itself, things that run on Drupal for that is we have an IRC bot that runs Drupal. We have our continuous integration framework that does automated testing runs Drupal. I mean, Drupal can literally do any kind of web-based thing that you want. But for low-end sites, you just want something up and running quickly and they don't need that sort of power, they often do stick with WordPress. Does that help? Okay, cool. Greg, then, take a picture?
Yeah.
Oh, right. All right, so everyone say dreams. No, I'm just kidding.